Welcome, everybody. This is Witchcraft TV, www.witchcrafttv.online. And you're watching Festival Fun with Christian Day and our co-host, AC Fisher Aldag. And we're going to talk all about WitchCon. Tell me about WitchCon, Mr. Day.
Well, first of all, hello to all your guests. Hello to you, Harold, and to you, AC.
Hello.
Always a pleasure. WitchCon started out in 2020 when all of the festivals, like our own Hex Fest that we have every August in New Orleans, which is very focused on New Orleans and its magic, well, we all ended up like these poor refugees having to go online. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold, but so like refugees, we all had to go online. And, you know, what basically try to retool everything we were doing for a festival that really wasn't designed to be online in most cases. You know, when you go to Pagan Spirit Gathering, you know, you want to be out there in a tent, balls slapping in the wind, heading for the drumming circle, seeing the fires, you know, whatever. You know, when you go to Convocation, you want to be in a hotel. You know, you go to Hex Fest, you want to be in New Orleans. You want to, you know, get your beignets and your cafe au lait and all that. You know, you want to be tied to the place. So like refugees, we all end up online desperately looking for different methods. And most people went with Zoom. I didn't go with Zoom because I don't like to look at people picking their nose while I'm teaching. So I just, and one of them really had it up there, you know, like this. I couldn't see her finger, you know. So I went with Crowdcast, which Llewellyn also uses, a few others use as a webinar platform. And as I started to notice the interest of the online, and that I was reaching people that I normally wouldn't reach, you know, people that are stuck in the house, you know, that not because of the pandemic, but general shut-ins, you know, I don't go out of the house, or I don't leave much, or I can't afford to travel, or I don't like planes, or, you know, whatever. And I started to reach these other audiences. And so I said to my husband, I said, it would be really interesting if we did something that focused on those audiences and that sort of, you know, group or crowd. And at the time, I was going through, you know, every couple of years, I go through these cycles where people in the magical and pagan communities decide they're going to cancel me. And this was one of those, you know, pogroms, as they say. And, you know, next thing you know, I've got all these presenters being harassed. And people saying, oh, how can you present at Hex Fest? He's evil, he's the devil, he's the this, you know. And one particular presenter called me up absolutely in tears that she had lost this article she was supposed to write for some newsletter and for an Irish pagan teacher website, something or another. And so I was so upset that she called me crying. I said, well, I have a choice. I'm either going to go to Ireland, I'm going to drop this author off the cliffs of Moher, but I don't look good in orange and I don't think jail is my thing. Or I'm going to do something that's so hard for them to cancel or boycott that it literally drives this giant railroad spike of a wedge into the middle of all of it. And so I said, they're feeling emboldened trying to cancel 14 or 15 presenters. What would they do if I had 100? So then WitchCon, you know, I called the woman that used to do WitchCon in New Orleans. She'd only done it once. I said, do you mind if I use this name? And she said, well, there's this other author, I'm not going to name, that he's thought about using it, but he never got around to it. So I don't care if you use it. I said, well, if you're not, you're the only one I care about, I said to her, because you're the one that used the name in commerce. You're the only one that would have a right to it. And so I went and I bought the domain WitchCon, someone owned it, for like $4,000. And I said, I like, it's a bit trite. I mean, let's face it, it's not the most creative name, but it says what it is. Boom, you get it. Right out of the gate, you get it. And so I bought that. And of course, she ended up getting screamed at by the people that, originally wanted to use it. And they apparently got bent out of shape. And it's like, well, whatever, you snooze, you lose, dude. I mean, I'm not beholden. This person was a hater, and I'll certainly bend over backwards trying not to step on the toes of someone that isn't a hater. But if you have my worst interests at heart, I'm not interested in, considering your feelings. So I created WitchCon, and I said to my husband, I said, how do we make this so that it doesn't feel like a refugee? So people aren't like, oh, I don't have the drumming circle around the fire in the woods, and I don't have the meet and greets in the hotel, and I don't get to show off these stupid badges they used to wear at PantheaCon that would drag all the way to the floor, that would, tell people your myriad of various identities. Whatever it is that people got from being in an in-person festival. I said, I want this to be something geared to this environment. I built my first website in 1994. So we weren't even, it was one of the first tarot websites on the internet, salemtarot.com. And so, I know intimately, we weren't even 30 years into the internet. I said, but we still haven't figured out how to make this unique to the internet. And so I went down to the brass tacks. I said, what can I do with this that you can't do with an in-person festival? So people aren't like, oh, I'm missing all these things. Well, what would you miss about an in-person festival? And I thought, well, okay, number one, it's the internet. I don't have to worry about the cost of flying all these people, especially since, with HexFest, up until this year, we did change this, but we did fly and hotel every person. Now we just pay people, but we do pay every person, which many festivals don't. And so it is a cost involved in, and people, if they can't afford flights, you're very limited. So you tend to see the same 10 people at all these festivals. If you've noticed, their keynotes tend to be the same interchangeable 10 people.
Yep.
Oh, here they are again. Oh, here they are again. Oh, here he is again. Oh, well, there he is. And I thought, well, what if we could get people from all over the world? And the only thing that was required was a fast internet connection. Now, obviously, I'm going to want people that could speak English as often as possible, because I'm not able to vet it if they don't. I only speak English. So, if you're out there, speaking in Russian, go kill your mother, or, you know what I mean? Like, saying that sort of thing, I'm not going to know. So I got to have English speaking. However, I will occasionally, like we had Jefferson Almeida from Brazil had a translator, and we had Idu Scarfon, who was a big TV star witch in Brazil, who had a translator. So I thought, well, you can't do that. And, you're not going to go to Paganicon and see people from all over the world. You're just not. That's number one. So I thought, well, what else could I do? And this is something Zoom doesn't do well, unless you pay for Zoom conference, which is super expensive and it's not that effective either. I looked into it in depth, and it does not do what Crowdcast does. Crowdcast is a web-based application, which I guess isn't as big of a deal now, because since COVID, everybody has Zoom. So you don't really have to worry about somebody not having an app, but you know how Zoom is? You have to constantly re-update it, which is why some people will use things like StreamYard, like you're using. You know what I mean? They're going to use something that it's a web app. They don't have to think about it. And Crowdcast automatically records every session. So one of our marketing slogans, watch favorites live, watch replays forever. I'm still catching up with 2021 WitchCon. Like, literally, we've got over 100 workshops by 100 presenters from all over the world. And yeah, you can only watch one at a, well, I suppose you could be bouncing back and forth between the rooms. That's the other thing. You can't do it an in-person festival. You know, if the rooms are all over the hotel, you can't be dipping in and out quite as easily as like literally during WitchCon. If you find this class boring or you don't like this subject, you bebop out into the next one. And then after the whole thing is over, you can watch them all. Every one of them. And that's something you cannot get with an in-person festival. So I found when people say, why isn't this in person? I want to be in person. When I tell them about these things, they're like, oh, I never thought of this. Meaning I have my own on-demand magical library with all these subjects. We have 119 people this year. You know, I try to have extras so I can always legally say it's over 100%. And I figure if I get 120, I'd have to whittle a few down, you know, because there's always people that pull out, you know, either they're not feeling well or, you know, something's going on in their life or whatever, and they can't do it. And so if somebody gets bullied out, you know, last year someone got bullied out and I replaced them with Z Budapest, and it was sort of, oh, this is going to be very controversial, but she's, you know, she has her, you know, detractors, but, you know, she's the mother of feminist spirituality. I was incredibly proud to have her. She was wonderful. And so is everyone. I mean, we get so many different great presenters. And so WitchCon is basically, I took the long road to Siam here with this question, but, you know, WitchCon is an online festival that allows people to experience teachers from all over the world, watch all their favorite episodes live, watch all the replays forever, and really become part of a community that bridges the world. Because I'll tell you, people really get into it. The Dragon Ritual drummers do a whole ritual presentation, not only for the opening ritual, but Saturday night. And people do watch parties. So if you haven't thought of this and you're watching this and you're attending WitchCon, do a watch party. Like, no, the people will take these giant TVs into their backyard. They'll have all their friends over, and it's only the cost of one ticket. So you pay the $95 for one ticket, have 20 people over your house. You're all sitting there. They got drums. Like, some of them will drum. You know, they'll drum along with the Dragon Ritual drummers. Now, of course, if they were to be brought into the audio, you know, they wouldn't be in sync because of the delay and the lag of the internet. But they don't know that. So in their minds, they're hearing the drummers, you know, not with a 6-second lag, and they're able to play along. And it brings all these people together in ways that I think the internet was designed to do and often fails at. Because let's face it, I mean, I sometimes think social media was the worst thing ever invented, because even though it was supposed to bring us together, you know, all three of us have experienced that sort of community hatred, we got to cancel that one. Oh, she's not appropriate. Oh, this one said that problematic thing. And, you know, so with all of the division that the internet creates, it's really wonderful to be able to say, well, here's this thing that can bring people together. And we were, you know, this time last year, we had done about 150 tickets and ended up getting to about 500 and something. 560 or whatever it was. We're already almost at 500 now.
Wow, amazing. Can you tell us about some of the presenters? You mentioned Dragon Ritual drummers and Z Budapest and some international ones. Who have you had in the past and who's coming this year?
Well, this year, so the good thing is if you go to witchcon.com, we've got what's called the Vault, and it has all the old WitchCons, and we've had some, you know, really spectacular people over the years, you know, and most of them come back. You know, not everybody comes every year. You know, some years we've had Sally Ann Glassman, who's, you know, a major voodoo priestess in New Orleans, and was, you know, Joan Rivers, you know, the famous comedian, her personal psychic and, you know, magical guide, you know, and, you know, of course, we've got Laurie Cabot this year. I'm going to go back into WitchCon. I'm actually opening Crowdcast just so I can actually remember some of these people out of 100 people. You know, one of the ones I think is really exciting is Georgi Mishev, because he writes about Thracian magic and folk magic, and he has, you know, I believe he's got a doctorate. I can't remember, but he's very educated. And he's out and lives in Bulgaria. Angie Buchanan, who you might be aware of out in the Chicago area. who's a death midwife and has really pioneered that in many ways. Like she was doing that. Now everybody and their mother is a death midwife, but she was one of the first people that I knew to go there. Ellen Everett Hopman, who's a Druid, and I've known her about 25 years, and very, very academic, very knowledgeable. Phyllis Curott, she's not there this year. But she wrote that famous Book of Shadows book in the 90s and was all over the talk shows. And she really went a long way towards socializing witchcraft because, even though I tend to be more in the Laurie Cabot school of, less visually relatable, though I would argue it actually has a different effect. Honestly, I can go on to a TV show with the most normal dressed person and I'll still be more relatable than them. But, just because of how, you talk. But Phyllis, with her DKNY suits and her, house in the Hamptons, it really going on the talk shows was like, oh, witches can be successful entertainment lawyers, and that type of thing. Sorry. God.
Maxine Sanders.
Yeah, the first year we had. She's always on my wish list for Hexfest. She's hard to get. I always want the ones that are hard to get. Benabel Wynn, she writes about tarot. She's fascinating. I sometimes wonder if she's a little scared to stand next to me, but but I do adore her. She's amazing. I don't know. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's why there's coffee. And this year, yes, I think this is the first. Is this the first year we've had Maxine? I think so. Yeah, because she doesn't. She likes to do interview style. Like she and Laurie Cabot are both we're pre-recording them. Well, I already pre-recorded Laurie Cabot, so those are the only pre-recorded ones. Because they really, they don't like to be live on the spot. They like to really focus in on what they're wanting to say. And Brian and Maxine are going to be having a conversation just like I had a conversation with Laurie Cabot, and I know that went really wonderfully. I mean, another one I'm super excited about. I love when we can get academic people that are spiritual but understand there's an importance to knowing our history. And that's always been a fine line, by the way. I know Maxine did a class once at Hexfest about how academia can be a magic killer. And I agree with her that, there are those in the witch community that will look at academics and say, well, we need to be completely academic, approved. And so they strip all the magic out completely, rather than understanding that the academic helps us to get the bits and pieces. But we have to put it together through the context of the magic. And then that's when actual research, like the kind that you do into folklore, you can't just look at it and go, oh, these people believed that hanging that thing in the window was going to, no, it worked. But you're able to take the academic and know what the actual thing was that they did hang in the window versus, what was made up, and so academia can be a great tool. But one of the premier academics that we've ever had, if not the, Max Dashu, who does the suppressed history. Is it the suppressed histories?
Yes, Suppressed Histories Archives.
Yes.
Yes.
He founded that in 1970 to research and document women's history on a global scale. She built a collection of 50,000 images and created 100 slideshows on female cultural heritages across time. She is amazing.
She's phenomenal.
She is amazing. I have been wanting her for years. She's another one in the community. They treated her badly at PantheaCon along with my friend Witch Dr. Utu. And I saw I investigated the whole situation because I am that type. Before I stand, I really do try to get the whole story. I try to see beyond, with you, Harold, when I first met you, and, there were things that people were trying to say. And I said, well, I want to see. You've just made that person more interesting, which is how I make most of my friends, by the way. No, everybody says I'm the devil, and then everybody wants to meet the devil. So I can't tell you how many friends I make from having haters. It's really weird. But, look how that works. So I looked into her and I said, now this is somebody that's just trying to see the gray area, the middle ground, find places of compromises between groups that might be in conflict, but might have the potential to reach some resolution. And I felt like once I got past that hullabaloo, I said, my God, this woman really understands our history. And understanding witchcraft is understanding women's history, because the two are so intrinsically intertwined. We are the only Western religion right now, that has a goddess. I mean, I suppose you could say pagan, but it's not really that organized. You know what I mean? And so we have this thing that plays right into what she is trying to do. I love Martha Moran Gonzalez. She lives in Mexico City. She runs Witchmart, which is this huge e-commerce site. She's one of the most fun, warm, you can't help but love her, and she's teaching on lunar enchantment, the moon magic, and that's the other thing. You get so many types of, you could be a complete beginner and go into this and get something from it, because you're going to have your sort of basic, here's how to use a candle. And then you're going to have, we've got my friend Sharon Day, and she's speaking on the witch as psychopomp, how we, excuse me, how we deal with death, grieving, the dying process, the whole 9 yards, the ideas of the afterlife. And she's also interviewing Len Roberts. And, he's a first time here, and he is, let me get to him here. I've got so many presenters, it's really hard. He's one of the remaining first generation witches who trained directly with Alex and Maxine Sanders in the late 60s. And he's doing a thing on transformative magic. What does it mean to follow a magical path? And when you've got so much information out there, how do you sift through what's real and what isn't? And how do we find those things that are deeper? And this is actually, it's not Sharon that's interviewing him. I take that back. It's Levi Rowland, who's an Alexandrian high priest of the Pontchartrain Coven. And he's an author with our own Warlock Press. He wrote The Art Cosmic, the magic of traditional astrology, which is the 7 traditional, the old school astrology with the 7 planets. And he just wrote the year before or last year, Mother, which is all about the goddess. And that won a cover award. The INAT, it won the gold award for best cover at INATS, which didn't even happen, but they didn't do INATS that last year, but they at least gave him an award. And I was sort of bittersweet because I wanted Fiona Horn's cover to win, just because it was my favorite cover. I designed both covers, so it was an award either way. But it was, I loved Fiona's Charlie's Angels inspired, elemental cover for Living the Elements. She's actually not there this year because she's doing an Egyptian, she's doing these wonderful Find Yourself in Egypt retreats for women that are just incredible. And I'm sure she'll be there next year. But
she was at the first one. I remember her at the first.
She's often at our event. She's just one of my favorite witches in the. She is everything I think a witch can be. My father always said the most powerful magic in the world is the magic of do, D-O, and nobody exemplifies that like her. I mean, fire dancer, skydiver, scuba diver. She's an expert at shooting guns, at the gun range. God, I'm missing things. Free diver, the stand up on the paddle thing, whatever that's. I don't know. There isn't anything she can't do. She's a commercial pilot. Like, she's just does it all. So, there's, and you, of course, I've got you. Who else? I think Eric Acadian, this is his first year, unlocking the mysteries of fluid condensers. Now, of course, most people, that's not something your beginner is going to know what that is. That's much more of a high tech. I mean, it really isn't. I think you can sit there and learn that as a beginner, fluid condensers, but it sounds esoteric. You know what I mean? Like but that's what I mean. Like, you're going to have that range. Angela DeFazio, who I've known for, she's a member of the Salem Coven. She's a priestess, and she is one of our psychics and magical practitioners at Hex. And I've known her 35 years. I used to work in the supermarket deli, and she was the late night checkout girl.
Oh,
And she's teaching on how to conduct a seance.
wow.
In a group setting, and she's trained in the spiritualist church. I often say witches invented spiritualism, or they invented mediumship, but the spiritualists perfected it.
Mhm.
They do it really great. Avi Lago from Scotland, he's in Glasgow, is teaching on Beyond the Veil of Isis as the masters intended it, which is all about theosophical, theosophy, like Blavatsky and what have you, which is especially poignant because the library in, where was it?
It was in California, and
and I never had a chance to go. I didn't go to
wildfires.
the Rosicrucian Museum either when I was in San Jose, but they lost so much of the theosophical museum, records and artifacts. So, it's kind of going to make that a bittersweet class, but, he's going to be talking about her famous book, Isis Unveiled, which, talk about a complicated tome. And that was required reading for Witchcraft 1 with Laurie Cabot. Like, she gave you, she gave you the hard stuff. And this was going back in 1990 when I took her class, and Isis Unveiled was one of the required, pieces. I'm sort of just scrolling around. Oh, I'm really excited about this. David Chi, who I met at Witches Fest in New York City. He's of Mongolian descent and traditional North Asian shamanism. And he has a book from Weiser on that, on Spirit Voices. And he's teaching about North Asian shamanism. And this guy is so smart. Like, he is just really, really intelligent, compelling, knows his magic, knows the history.
It really sounds like you have witchcraft from around the world.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the videos that we put out, we're doing a lot of video clips and ads this year, and one of them is, like, Laurie Cabot really puts it in such a perfect, she's like, we have witch communities from all over the world, and of course, broader than just witch, because WitchCon isn't just witches, it's a magical festival. And so we've got people coming from every kind of perspective.
What are some of the presenters that have been there since the very first WitchCon and are still there?
Laurie Cabot.
Everyone.
Many of them. Georgie Mishev, Kenya Koviat, Hungon Sanjak, Ellie Barnes, Ellen Evan Hopman. Also new this year, I'm super psyched, I've been wanting her for years, Deborah Blake. She writes a lot of beginner type of magical witchcraft books. She's doing a class on using and creating a book of shadows. So she's brilliant. She herself is not a beginner, but her stuff is very accessible. So and I really run the range of that, because you want people that are just literally learning. And here's the great thing about this event too. You come in as a beginner and you can watch sort of the beginner track. I don't group them that I've thought of, because I know that Proudcast allows you to do tracks in these conferences. So I thought at some point I'll do beginner track, whatever, but maybe. But the good thing is you can go into this and pick all your beginner classes. And let's say, 2 years from now, you're much more advanced. You go back into the WitchCon you already bought, and then you watch all the advanced classes that didn't make sense to you at the time. Like, that's another aspect of this that's incredibly powerful. This first year also, we've got Andrew Chestnut, who's teaching, why is Santa Muerte the fastest growing religion? He wrote the book Devoted to Death, Santa Muerte, the Skeleton Saint, and he's published by Oxford University Press.
Wow.
He's a heavy hitter. As far as going back, of course, beginners I'm not beginners, but who were here from the beginning. Drago from, Ontario, who's part of the Dragon Ritual Drummers, and of course the Dragon Ritual Drummers. Kat Sagard, and she's teaching Love, Lust, and Aphrodisiacs, which is going to be really great. She owns Cat and Monkey up in Niagara Falls. Carolyn Tully, she's been there from the beginning. She's in Australia. She's teaching Thelemic witchcraft. So again, the beginner's not going to go into Thelemic witchcraft. But the great thing about this event is it has the balance of beginner, novice, expert type of information. You might appreciate this one. Anna Greenflame, this is her first year. Superstition, super witchery, adapting folklore to modern practices.
Nice.
And here's
That's what I'd like to watch.
Here's the thing. We, for the first time, for this year was the first year, and I was always reticent to do this. I've never done this with HexFest. I always had everything invite only because I really wanted to curate everything. But it was becoming harder and harder to chase people. Because you had these people, that be like, I can't present, I'll get bullied, or, my friends don't like you, or whatever stupid reason people had. So I was like, I am tired of chasing the cowards. I would, so I opened it up to the public. Anybody can apply, and I got more heavy hitters. Like I got more really great people that wrote books and know things that I didn't even know existed, like people I didn't even know about. Came out and applied to this. And so I'm so grateful. We've got Swastik Banjari, I might be saying his name wrong. Banerjee.
Banerjee.
Oh, he's in Bengal. Oh no, he's in Bengal. His class is on exploring the Indian occult through the planets. Like this guy is, he's a very thick accent, so you're going to have to listen. It is a very thick accent, but this guy's fucking excuse me, sorry, bleep. He's in India. Tata Oriate's been with us for years, and he's teaching on Orisha tradition. One of my favorites that's been there off and on from the beginning, who's coming this year, is Tomas Prower, who's doing pagan funeral planning. He's actually a mortician. He wrote Queer Magic, Morbid Magic, La Santa Muerte. He went through a cancel campaign. He's actually of Mexican descent. Mm-hmm. And so one of these, white social justice warriors that wasn't remotely Latino, waged this entire campaign against him for not being, when he's actually Latino or Latinx or whatever they're saying nowadays. And it's really, the way that they came at him was so offensive. It's like, why don't you at least ask first? You sometimes wonder that these people want to pull out the paper bag test, but, it's just ridiculous. Thorn Mooney's been with us off and on from the beginning. She's there this year. Troubling Witch, the labels we choose and what they say about us. Because that is... she asks, is witchcraft a religion, a practice, or something else? Have you ever described yourself as spiritual but not religious? What the heck does it mean for someone to be traditional? I love her. She's a big YouTube person. Like her YouTube videos on witchcraft are just some of the best there are. And really brilliant. And she wrote traditional Wicca for Llewellyn, which of course I chided her for using the word Wicca, but her second book, it's witchcraft, or I forget the name of it. What is it? Now I got to go look because I can't. The Witch's Path, Advancing Your Craft. And the reason I say that is because it's Wicca. It's not Wicca. It's not even pronounced Wicca, and it means male witch. And so when you take the words Huicha and Huiche, which are the root words of witch, mm-hmm. You have to take this into the context of Anglo-Saxon, which is also known as Old English, being a gendered language, whereas modern English is not a gendered language. Gendered meaning like Spanish, lo and la.
Or French.
Right. Senorita, senor, certain words that have different versions of those words for gender. Well, Anglo-Saxon was a gendered language, and there were only two, sorry, in Anglo-Saxon. They didn't have the X. But the words Wicha and Wiche were not words as we understand them today. They were variants of gender. Like Wicha is how you say it when you're talking about a man. Wiche is how you say it, or Wichi, when you're talking about a woman. Well, when you take the gender off for modern English, you get witch. And Laurie Cabot had always said, Christian, the word Wicca, there is no word Wicca. It was always witch. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And of course she didn't. She was right all along. And I had to call her. I'm like, you were right all along. The whole word for witch really is witch because you only add the and the E when you're contextualizing it in terms of gender. So, I get that a lot of these initiates, because I am an Alexandrian, a lot of the Gardnerians and Alexandrians have embraced Wicca so they can feel that they're not the same as all the people misusing the word witch. But as my husband said on Covendom the other night, people are misusing Wicca more than they are witch. There's more weird uses of that word than there ever were of witch. I'm not giving up any of those words. I'm going to use witch forever. And I'm going to use warlock, which I know a lot of people don't like, and I don't care. It's sexy. And frankly, I'm going to keep saying this till the day I die. I get so many complaints from straight women in the craft. How come I can't find a man? How come all the men in the craft are gay? And I'm going to say this, ladies, if the word warlock was more accessible, you'd have a lot less straight men running to Asatru and all these Nordic religions. The word witch feels emasculating, obviously not to Harold, obviously not to every straight male witch. I'm assuming you're straight. And not every straight man is going to feel emasculated by the word witch, but enough of them will. And let's face it, warlock is so much more sexy. I mean, I have to say, when I first started using that word, women on my social media walls were like, ooh.
It definitely changed in the landscape of the word. Yes.
But that's the other thing. I love playing with words. When people, that's not what the word means. Well, guess what? Words evolve. They change back. They change to something else. They become something entirely new, and then they go all the way back around again. I love playing with words because it upends people's sense of security. You know what I mean? And I think people need that upended once in a while. I mean, maybe not to the level that we're going through right now with all our political changes. I think that's a little scary. I'm looking into Italian citizenship in case I need to get out of Dodge. But at the same time, I'm a lot more accepting, I think, than I was in 2016's election cycle. I'm not deleting people en masse. I'm trying to be a little more understanding of people's differences, but still stand against the worst of it. To understand why someone might have made those political choices for reasons that might not have been, racist or fascist, and know that, people have a lot of different roads to hoe. And can we find that conversation? It's why I'm the one that put trans women in Z Budapest on the same bill at WitchCon. I remain proud of that fact. And I know there's people, how can you have that person? And how can you have this? Because I said so. Why'd you do that? Because I said so. See, we Gen Xers grew up with because I said so. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're all, I don't know how old are you over there, Harold? I know.
44.
Okay, so you're probably millennial, maybe borderline. I think AC and I are over here at Gen X's.
Oh, I'm older than you. I'm 62.
Yeah, but that's still some Gen X.
I'm kind of the edge of the boomer.
Well, you were the Gen. the people your generation and higher were the ones that said, "'Cause I said so."
Right?
Yeah.
Did you die when you did this to me? Did you die? Are you still going?
Oh,
No,
that's a great opportunity for a segue here because I'm going to be every segment we do a festival fun. I'm going to ask the controversial question. Okay, I'm going to do the surprise question, kind of spring on people.
oh, you
And
could.
my controversial question for you, the surprise question for you is: you are a figure of controversy in some circles.
Some?
In,
How about all?
in witchcraft and in Wicca and in paganism, I hear, "Ooh, Christian Day, he eats babies and whatever." How has this affected your gatherings, Hexfest and WitchCon? You've come up with it a little bit about how being canceled worked, but overall, how has it affected you?
There's no way I'm not going to sound arrogant with this answer, which is half the reason they hate me. It's not really the things I've done or said, most of which I didn't do or say. Some things I've done or said that they say I've done or said, but most of them I haven't. It's that I'm successful and I'm arrogant. But I am somewhere near the top of the witchcraft economic food chain. I'm up there. I mean, I'm not wealthy. I suppose if you count the 2 homes and the things but even then I have mortgages. I'm not liquid. Let's put it that way. I do very well, and I sometimes have to ask, would I have done that well if the haters weren't a part of that formula? I do sometimes ask this because I remember in 2002. This was as I wasn't, I had Salem Tarot, but I wasn't well known. And I had, one of the more prominent witches in Salem running around, not Lori Cabin, running around saying I was a child molester.
Ooh.
I started out with the very worst false accusation. Mind you, I don't even I don't like being around children. I didn't like kids when I was one. So just never mind sexually, just in any sort of way, I'm just, ugh. You know what I mean? I told my husband when we got married, no kids, no cats. So it's just ironic they'd pick that, but, then I'd be in downtown stores and people would be standing off in the corner sort of staring at me. And I'd be like, it's okay to talk to me, and then I would make everybody wanted to meet the pedophile. Not because they really thought I was one, because it made me somehow fascinating because, oh my God, why are they saying all these things about this person? Why isn't he in jail? Why is this? Why is that? Why is this? That one Welsh witch author there,
Not me.
no, not you. That was the other day. I looked at her comments and she had someone on there that 20 years ago or 15 years ago publicly accused me of murdering my best friend, Sean, when I was in New Orleans when he died of an overdose. We all know the drug dealer that gave him the morphine. Like, we know how he died and why and the whole night. But literally they accused me. And so I have dealt with this. My husband's much better at it, honestly, because I did say to him 10 years ago, when they make websites all about you, it'll upset you too. Because I don't like seeing hateful things said about me. But I got to tell you, my husband's an ice princess. Literally somebody recently did this whole web thing about him that was awful and accused us of some of the worst crimes, both of us, that are not true. And he never, I went to send him the link. He wouldn't even look. He said, I don't care about this. Never looked, never cared. Whereas I'm it does bother me. What's the line from Evita? You'll despair when they hate you. You'll be drained of all energy. All the young who've made it would agree. So, it sometimes bothers me. But I think do I think it's helped me? Well, I don't know. I'm at the top of this economic food chain. Has it helped me? Would I be here if I didn't have all these haters keeping my name out there when everyone else is bored? I don't know. I can't tell you. I mean, I know that there are people that will not present with me, but I have the largest online festival in the world. And if I go to some of these other festivals, yeah, they might have a lot of big names, but they don't freaking have Laurie Cabot and Maxine Sanders. You know, I like some of these people. I think Matt Warren does great work. I mean, you know, I don't like them personally. That whole, I call them the Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice there. You know, I'm not fans of them personally, but they do good work. But they're not Laurie Cabot. They're not Maxine Sanders. Christopher Penczak is not Laurie Cabot or Maxine Sanders. You know, I'm getting people that are, you know, very iconic. Z Budapest. I mean, you're talking about icons. And so, okay, there's people that won't work with me. Well, there's people that will. And you know who drilled that into me? And this was why I switched to open enrollment on HexFest. And I was nervous because I thought, oh, this is going to suck. Like, I'm going to get all losers. And I didn't. I actually got better. I was all upset that people weren't presenting, and it was really hard to get people to present for me, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that was all in my own head. Because Fiona Horn says to me on the phone, she said, Christian, why are you so wrapped up in the people that won't present for you? I'm sort of being like a Dina Monsoon from AbFab when she did the book club, and she goes, you know, absolutely fabulous. We want the people who say no, you know, and I'm trying to get the ones that don't like me. Beating my head against the wall, trying to get Ramen Noodle Hair over there, who got bullied. And I won't say who, well, that's pretty obvious who I'm talking about. Who else has Ramen Noodle Hair? But, you know, I really cared about this person. He gave me an award for Best Festival. And multiple people resigned from Pathos Pagan because I got this award. Next thing you know, he's bullied and won't present for me.
Oh, dear.
Well, you know, and it did hurt me. I've shed more than a tear or two over some of these people that did this to me. It hurt my feelings greatly. And then Fiona Horn said, well, why are you you know what I mean? Why are you beating your head against the wall for the people that don't want to be there? You know what I mean? Why don't you go and use this as an opportunity to expand into areas you wouldn't have even thought of?
Fiona's famous.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
She's the, I mean, not for nothing. She's the most famous.
Mm-hmm.
She was on the cover of Australian Rolling Stone. You know, it's probably a toss-up between her and Laurie Cabot, really. But, you know, honestly, she's, you know, it's huge. She had a TV show. So, anyway, she's like, well, why don't you expand? And I have to correct myself. This was actually the year before I opened it up to the public, application. It was the year before. And that was when I decided to go really further afield. It's when I got Swastik Mejeri. It's when I got Spiros Parishos, who's not there with us this year, you know, but he'll come and go. He did something on, he lives on the island, I can't even say the name, Zakynthos or whatever. It's an island in Greece. He literally live streamed from an island in Greece.
Wow.
And talking about modern Greek paganism, reconstruction of the ancient, Greek religion and all this. Amazing. And if it weren't for Fiona Horn slapping me upside the head, much like Laurie Cabot, she's my mentor, really. Laurie's always the one to say, Christian, why do you aggrandize your enemies? Your enemies don't exist. You never hear her talk about anything that she doesn't like. They doesn't exist. Like, if you are a detractor of Laurie Cabot, you just cease to exist. Like, you're not in her universe. You don't factor into her brain. Like, she is 1000% tunnel vision on the goal of being and doing Laurie Cabot. And
that's a magical thing, though. My enemies just don't
incredibly powerful.
That's really good advice.
I suck at it. I am much more sensitive than I think most people realize. And so, I think some of them do realize, which is why they do it. You know what I mean? I actually have an intermittent explosive disorder thing that I'm diagnosed with from my shrink, not like these people that diagnose themselves with autism and every other thing they don't really have. And my husband was like, why didn't you tell people you have this? Then they might feel sorry for you. I said, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. But then I read that it's also called the Jekyll and Hyde disease. And I said, well, now that sounds cool. Now, see, I can tell people I have the Jekyll and Hyde. Somebody asked me, a friend of mine's doing a tarot deck and said, which card do you want to be? I'm doing, tarot to people. I said, the devil, of course. Plus it's Capricorn and I'm a Capricorn. I'm okay now. It took me many years to come to terms with the fact that I am the devil in the story. And I know the truth because the compass north for me has always been and will always be the truth. So if something is said that's true, and I have said some vicious things in a fight that I probably should have thought better of, and it's like my husband says, my only real crime is that I'm rude. Like I have said some nasty, disgusting things in my day that I probably should have thought better of, and they really weren't seemly. But that's as far as it goes. I've got this one author saying I called ICE on him when not only did I not, but he knows who actually did, and he's literally blatantly lying. Blatantly lying, knowing he's lying. But guess what? I can't do anything about it. First of all, I'm famous. And if you're a public figure, you can't sue people the same way regular people can. Like I not only have to prove that I lost money. Well, if the money keeps rolling in, how do I prove I lost money? I have to prove not only that you lied, which is usually the standard for defamation, but as a public figure, I have to prove that you knowingly lied, because people could say, well, I heard it on the internet. I thought it was true. And that's the law, by the way, that Trump was trying to get rid of. He was trying to make it so that public figures could sue. And some part of me would love the idea of that, except for one thing. If every court, because I don't know if, I know in Canada, oh, no, you're not in Canada, are you? Oh, I know in Canada it's easier to sue for libel. I don't know how it ends up working with famous people, but I know down here, if public figures could so easily sue for slander, every court in America would be tied up with people Beyonce suing because they say she's in the Illuminati, and you'd never be able to get anything through the courts. So I'm not sure I agree with them changing that law, though it's tempting. But here's the thing, even if I could sue, I'm going to take all this money, I'm going to sue, I'm going to do this for some person that has two nickels to, because let's face it, the people that say the worst things about me are often the most financially destitute. So they don't have anything to take other than, my own egotistical satisfaction that I put them through the ringer. But then what do I get from that? How does that move my needle forward? So if I'm spending all my time trying to adjudicate these sort of cancel campaigns against me or anybody else, because I used to get more involved. I've defended Utu and Silver Raven Wolf and Fiona Horn and different people over the years, and you'll notice I don't get as involved because it just doesn't serve a purpose. And I find that when all of us focus on who we are, which is the Laurie Cabot method. She's very Queen of England. Never explain, never complain. That was the Queen of England. That's Laurie Cabot. Like it's tunnel vision. What am I? And honestly, the two questions I get more than any other: why doesn't my magic work? And how do you deal with all these haters and keep doing what you're doing? The answer to those questions is the same. Joan Rivers said in her documentary, A Piece of Work, oh, the reporters always ask me, is Melissa going to become a comedian? And I say, oh, you don't just say I'm going to become a comedian. You have to want to be a comedian. You have to want to tell jokes and make people laugh so bad that you're willing to get on a stage and have people boo you because they don't think you're funny, but you have to do it anyway on the chance that you might be. It's a calling. I do what I do. As Laurie used to say, could you imagine me working at Microsoft? Is this what you see coming into the office at Google? Like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is who I am. And I wear, I don't go full on robes like Lori, but I do wear a lot of witchy clothing. And I do say, I love, Byron Ballard's one of my favorite people, and she presents every year. But every Halloween, she does that, show yourself as a real witch and how you really look. And, basically, let's look normal. Here's how you look every day, not ritual garb. I always post me look. Sometimes I'll show like on vacation with a fedora or something, but a lot of times it's like this because this is normal, and every aspect of me is normal. As RuPaul said, you're born naked and the rest of is drag. The eyeliner, this is all very religious and magical. It represents the gods and seeing into other worlds and amplifying the eyes to amplify the power of the sight.
Ooh.
And you de-emphasize, notice Lori Cabot never has heavy lipstick. It's always emphasized on the eyes. It's very Egyptian. It's very, granted, a lot of those things were designed to protect them from infection, like the kohl, that they would wear. But it also meant it connected you to the other world. It's like Hindus when they emphasize the third eye. And I find it interesting that the most vicious people in paganism, which no is not Byron Ballard, she's nothing vicious about her, but some of those people will be like, why don't you dress normal? Oh, did we lose? Why don't you dress normal like I do? Like I'm wearing sundress and flip-flops and a tie-dye t-shirt. Well, let me tell you something. I worked at one of the top ad agencies in the world in corporate America. Never did I walk into work and see a 500-pound woman in a sundress with flip-flops or a tie-dye t-shirt. Sorry. I never saw that. Maybe it sounds mean, but I never saw that. That's not normal either. None of what any of you have on I've ever seen in corporate America. That doesn't mean it's not normal for you, but it isn't standard anybody. We all have our own personal aesthetic. But when I say dress witchy, well, okay, the color black draws in light. It actually scientifically draws in light. Right. So it helps us to be psychic. This is not a fantasy or occult information. This is science.
Absorbent.
It is black because it's taken all the light and it's not reflecting it back to you.
Yep.
And so all of that becomes a magical statement. Now, am I going to go a little, do I need to add the chains? No. Do I need to look like Liberace and Elvira had a baby? No. But it's all part of that, I said to Lori the other night when I interviewed her, it used to frustrate me so bad when the pagans said, well, how come you won't just look normal with a sundress or a tie-dye t-shirt? Because that's so normal. I actually find those people less annoying than the aesthetic TikTok witches with 10 tons of makeup and spiked gothic hair and, every imaginable crazy looking witchy aesthetic. And the reason why I find those people more annoying on TikTok is they're not doing it for magical reasons. It's literally just aesthetic. Here's my altar. Look at the spell I'm doing. What is wrong with you? You don't show your magic, you fool. To know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. Don't show your magic. If I wear this, it's not because I'm like, Now, obviously, I'm in two tourism towns. I'm going to zhuzh it up a little, and I'm also gay, so I'm going to zhuzh it up a lot. But there's a meaning behind all of it. So when these aesthetic witches, I'm going to look witchy. Let me show you this, but there's no science, as Lori would say, behind it. There's no understanding of light, of the purpose of these things and why we do them. That a pentacle is a geometric, representation of every other pentacle in the world, and it creates a network of power. There's reasons for this, so to cycle back to your question, why do I continue to do this and how does it affect me? I do this because this is what I was meant to do. This is who I am. It is what I do. It is my purpose. And when something is your purpose, nothing will dissuade you. There could be dozens of cancel campaigns every other month, and it won't matter because you're focused on what you're meant to do. And if you're doing what you're meant to do, or as Crowley would say, you're following your highest will, or following your will. When you are there, it's all noise. It's all distraction. and it doesn't matter. And the right people will come to you. I have more people at WitchCon this year than we've ever had before, and I have some of the greatest names. Are there people I wish were here? Are there people I wish would, some of these people that were bullied out of working with me are people I really wish I could work with. Am I sad about it? Sometimes, but it does not distract from the purpose, nor does it distract from and here's the most important thing, because it is the very basis of my work in every capacity, whether it's WitchCon, HexFest, Festival of the Dead in October in Salem, or the shops, the walking tour, even the tour that we do in Salem, which is kind of a ghost and witch tour, is designed for one purpose: to bring magic to a world that needs it. Mm-hmm. So more important to me than what Noodle Hair does or this one does is that you're sitting there with a group of people in your class, helping them to understand things that are going to empower their magic and make their lives a better thing. And that's more important to me, that you're sitting there, than someone else isn't. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. Well, I am going to ask now, how can people participate in WitchCon?
Because it's so easy I know you mentioned somebody having trouble on Google, because then I Googled Witchcraft Festival and I'm like, didn't all like it. At least one of my things came up, Festival of the Dead. Which really is a problem with my own SEO. It means I need to use words like festival and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I actually taught how to write for search engines 25 years ago at an ad agency. It's like I know how to do it. I just, you get lazy. And, but it's easy, witchcon.com. And of course, if you go to christianday.com, there's always links to everything. You look under whatever my section is of what I'm doing, and there's links to all the shops. We're basically a very multi-dimensional corporation. We're called Warlocks Inc. And, we've got Warlock Press, we've got the shops, we've got all sorts of things going on. And hexfest.com is for, that comes in August, and that's our in-person festival, which is all centered on New Orleans magic. And this year we're kind of refocusing on local practitioners as opposed to bringing in all these people. Because again, I want to make WitchCon take advantage of the global nature of the internet. I want to completely focus HexFest on the locality, the genus loci, the magic of that space. So very different functions, but still doing the same thing, bringing magic to people. So if you visit witchcon.com, we try to limit it to 1,000 because I don't want to break their. I always worry that if I go too far with Crowdcast, something's going to break. So we limit it to 1,000. And I think Crowdcast would have to really convince me to go above that number because I'd be a little nervous. And we're already, I think, over 500, and the most tickets sell in the last 10 days. So if you're planning to go, I would go. Now, the good thing is if you don't have time that weekend, it is Super Bowl. That was stupid of me to schedule it the same weekend. But if you don't want to sign up, you can always sign up the week after and just watch everything on demand, but it is nice to be able to ask questions. And there's a Q&A box on Crowdcast where you can ask a question, and then the viewer, the teacher can click to answer the question and then end answering the question. And then when they watch the replays, you can actually go forward to where questions were answered. It timestamps them. So it's it's witchcon.com, christianday.com.
All right. There is some other people I want to mention. Priestess Miriam, Oberon Zell. I'm trying to think of some other presenters who I'm really excited about seeing. Charity
She's great. Oberon's an icon.
He is.
Oh, who I love? Gusty Zarega.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professor. He's brilliant. John Psosis, Carrigan Griffin, Griffith, Jamal DeFiosa, Michael Carell, Mark Nakamp. There's just so many. It's like you can't. Miss Ada. Oh, I love Miss Ada.
Michigan.
Huh?
The neighbor.
She's great. There's just so many. Trish Telesco. She's been around forever. Robin Artisan.
Another folk magic person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tamara Farah von Forslund, who has she's like the Yellowstone of if you saw that show. She has the largest cattle ranch in Australia, a helicopter and a jet, and wants Brian and I to come down and hang out on the ranch. And I'm like,
oh my.
she is so fabulous. She has the best personality. Yesha Matthews. Oh, this one's really interesting. She's new. Vivian Meritrix is an OTO priestess, and I think she is she's a burlesque performer, and she's doing The Devil, the Witch, and the Showgirl. So yeah, there's just so many. Vicky Bramshaw. There's just so many. Oh, Storm Fairy. Not Storm Fairy. Well, sorry. No. Storm Sestavani. I've known him for years, and he was always so behind the scenes. He would never show himself or get on video. And so this is his first public festival that he's ever done. And he's one of the best astrologers and Kabbalists you will ever meet. Really brilliant.
We've got all kinds of different paths. There's Kenya T. Koviak from Michigan, who's
I love her.
voodoo. And, of course, Priestess Miriam is a voodoo priestess. And all kinds of, you mentioned Ellen Everett Hopman, who is Druid.
Silver Ravenwolf, can't forget her.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, she's huge. Sasha, her and Lori Cabot get the most responses to the ads. When I advertise who's there, I will sell the most tickets from the two of them. Sasha Graham is amazing. She writes about tarot. She's also a horror actress in B horror movies, and she just won some award for that. She's incredibly fun. Shannon Marie Doust from Dark Candles, Goddess Rhonda, Rafael Cacuzos from Brazil. That's the other thing. Where we've got these people coming from. All sorts of people from the UK, author Rachel Patterson, who does a lot of kitchen witchery and that sort of thing. Patty Negri, she's the Hollywood witch. She's on what do you call it? Ghost Adventures a lot. And we worked together on a recent episode, and there's only so much I can say, but she was incredible to work with. And I can't say the details, but there was a picture that came out that I was in that it's not quite on the level of Lori Cabot's 1979 National Geographic, where she made blue light appear in the room. But I will say that when this picture comes out, I will be rubbing it in a lot of faces, because it is my National Geographic moment. I mean, I wish I could say, and I can't wait till they air it, because it's so epic. Zach Bagans himself said this picture should be on the cover of a magazine, and I was at the center of it.
That's going to be exciting when that comes out. I can't wait to see it.
It was incredible. And the person, I was there to conjure, I don't like to step on toes. And Patty's the psychic, and it's not that I'm not a good psychic, but that's her thing with them. And so I let her do do you feel the temperature change? And of course, every time she said, did you feel the temperature change? I had felt the temperature change. So that made me know she's a real psychic. She's absolutely talented. But I was there to conjure the spirit. And I conjured the spirit through a person that was a descendant of that spirit, right? And that, I can't say who it is, but that person, they were trying to conjure the spirit through floor tiles. Oh, this person stepped on these floor tiles. And what the hell are you doing with floor tiles? You've got the river of blood. You've got the descendant. You've got the genetics. So I conjured spirits through this person. And in this Polaroid, which can't be faked, probably saying too much, but I'm going to say, in this Polaroid that can't be fake, they had multiple Polaroids, and most of them were just like the blur of a head and that sort of thing. So this descendant in this one picture that was the variant literally became a pillar of light, and there are light beams bouncing all over the room and coming out of my hands.
Wow.
I'm going to be like, haters,
I hate to see
you
that.
make this happen, bitch. Sorry.
Well, thank you so much, Christian Day, for coming and being on the Festival Fun Show. It was really fun talking to you. Learned a lot, and we're looking forward to WitchCon online, February 7th, 8th, and 9th. It's coming
Well, next
right up
year,
here.
maybe we'll get Harold to teach a class.
Next
Sure.
year.
Sure, I love them. Maybe in March I'll do the paperwork online and maybe submit something for Pagan Media.
You got to use the word pagan.
I
Talk
love
to me
that
before
word.
you submit, because I want to make sure you submit something that, you know, I'm a little choosy.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, we really appreciate you showing up and talking with us. And we are really looking forward to WitchCon. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. It was wonderful to be with you tonight.
It was wonderful to be with you too.
Take
And
care.
make sure you keep it right here on www.witchcrafttv.online. We are fair representation for all witch, pagan, and magic paths.